I'm telling you, people do not shut up about me doing another one of those.
Sleeping with Pete was one of the most interesting ideas I'd ever heard about. I'm like, Pete's so original with his ideas.
See, but that was my problem was I always come up with these original ideas and then I never follow through with them. Like eBay game hunting.
Yeah.
Super successful. And then I just stopped doing it.
But why?
I don't know. I think it was just towards like the downfall of when I was bouncing around all these different ideas and I just stopped following through with them. Like I found it hard to commit to doing videos like multiple times a week.
Yeah.
Just that energy and having to set up everything and
yeah.
And plus I try and stay off of eBay when I can because you browse and you see shit you want to buy.
It's insanity. I stay off it too.
I used to be pretty addicted to eBay.
Yeah.
So, I try and stay off of it when I can.
The one thing I never do is I never have a couple of beers and go on eBay. I bought like 4 graphic novels the other night. I'm like, oh my god.
No, it's so bad that like I just go on eBay and on the homepage there'll be stuff they recommend for me because that's stuff I follow. And if I just browse through that for a few minutes, I just end up buying shit. Like, an example, the F.M. Towns Marty.
Yeah.
The mascot for that is like this little alligator. They had a figure, like a little thing where you like press it and his arms open up, like we stick it on a pencil or something from Japan. I bought that shit. $50.
I'd be in a lineup for that shit.
But that's just the problem. Like I see this obscure stuff and I'm like, I would love to have that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'll never see this again, which I probably won't.
Yeah.
And then I just feel compelled to have to buy it. So
we should start the episode now.
Yeah.
I've got audio. Okay. Yeah.
You're really far out of frame though.
Am I?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm so far.
Is that zoomed in?
Yeah. I can zoom in more.
No, I'm saying maybe zooming out like just a teeny tiny. I mean, it looks good right now, but if you do lean back if you were comfortable.
It's okay.
Like if you ever get to that point, now you're really small.
I won't. Yeah. It's so weird because we feel like we're so close.
Well, if you zoom it back a little.
No, I'm good.
Right.
Trust me.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. We have audio. I always say that because I say we have audio just to make sure I can see the wavy lines. I don't want to. I recorded 3 videos one time. I sat down and I did these Amiibo videos.
I've done
I'm
them
like,
too.
I had so much energy, and I did these 3 videos.
Find
I
out
thought
the mic's not in, or I never hit record, or something.
That's what happened. I put it all in. I'm like, oh, cool. It got 3 videos in. That's cool. And then there's no audio. I'm like, all the blood drains from my face.
I just turn the camera off and I just say, oh well, no video today.
So, welcome back to another episode. And today, this is unbelievable. Me and Pete Dorr are in the same room. We're down in Arizona. It's very hot outside, and we have the air conditioning here, which is great. I can't. Oh my god, the weather in Arizona is insane. It's
the first
so
day
hot.
was kind of manageable, but today I can see what they mean about Arizona weather. It's brutal out there.
It's brutal out there. It's crazy. But what we're gonna do today, and this is so cool that we can do this, is just have an intimate conversation with Pete. And every time I say that, I keep thinking about that episode, Sleeping with Pete.
We're actually very close, right? Like we're like
uncomfortably close. I can, but no. The funny thing is this is kind of reminds us of the All Gen Gamers when we used to be on there, doing that. And the All Gen Gamers is still going on.
Yeah, it's still going on.
Yeah.
Not on a strict schedule right now, but we do put out episodes every once in a while. We're gonna actually be recording episode 200 tomorrow night in a panel. So.
Jesus, and that's the thing. I don't know what episode I dropped off at. Maybe 86.
I think it was something around
like that.
But
and
you were on the show for like a good 2 years or so.
Yeah, it was like, and the funny thing is, I think a lot of people think, oh, you're going to do this forever. It's like, it was a weekly podcast back then with a guest on, and I'm really nostalgic about the podcast. It's like, it's something I was really happy to do, and I think we had some really good times, and I think a lot of people really liked, not saying anything, but a lot of mine and Pete's interactions, because we liked a lot of the same games, and we had a lot of the same history, and we kind of started together on YouTube at the same time, so we wanted to just talk about all of that today.
Kind of
reminisce about everything, and so it was interesting because back in 2008 or 2009?
2008, yeah.
It was probably the later 2008, I got a message from this guy called Pete Dorr, and saying, hey, I really like your videos, I'm a big collector myself, I'm thinking about making videos, and I'm just, what do you think? Like, I remember you kind of saying, yeah, like, you were kind of unsure.
I'm sure if we went back on our YouTube accounts and looked at really old messages.
You can't, they're gone.
Really?
I think they're gone, yeah, they're gone. That would have been super nostalgic to find that, but you're just like, yeah, I'm thinking about doing this channel, and I think you were just like waiting for me to say something, and I was just like, yeah, well, just go for it, and you're like, yeah, I think I will. And you were going to anyways, but I think you just was like, Just wanted to reach out to other people making videos.
The reason why I reached out to you specifically, because back then there really wasn't many gaming channels at all, and your style kind of set you apart because you were back then a lot of YouTube gaming content was like just them setting up a webcam or a really poor capture card, because back then there wasn't much to choose from.
Yeah.
And either just recording gameplay, doing a little bit of voiceover with a really bad mic, but then you sort of had this show presentation where you're doing like series overviews, like really in-depth reviews, and I'm like,
yeah,
man, that would, obviously you were inspired by the Angry Video Game Nerd, and you sort of adapted it into your own way.
Different thing,
I was inspired by you to sort of do the same kind of like in front of the camera presentation thing, but adapt it in my way more towards collecting without so much like series overviews, I guess you can say.
Just talk about whatever you want to talk
whatever
about.
I wanted to do, yeah.
And it's so funny, so you're like, yeah, I'm going to do a video in the next couple of days, and then you sent the first video to me. And you know what, like, I really am nostalgic about the video because it's all, you're blurry, and
I was using a webcam.
A webcam, yeah, very webcamming, and you're blurring in it, and you're showing the stuff, and it was like, and I must admit, I was like, oh, I wasn't like going, wow, this is incredible, but I was applauding that you were trying. I really was, and back then, if anybody was trying to make videos about collections they loved, that's a big deal. It didn't matter what you did it on, and you wanted to encourage people to come on. You're like, yeah, join me, so I'm not alone on here doing this stuff. And then, then you just started to do more and more stuff. I know you got super well known for the unboxings, but what a lot of people have to know, and this is going to be surprising to a lot of you, it's still surprising to me when I think back, when Pete first showed his PlayStation 2 collection. And those videos, and you did a 360 collection, stuff like that, and those videos went huge.
The collection videos where I have like the stacks of games in front of me and just go through each one. And
yeah. You have to understand, this isn't a time on YouTube when nobody had done that. Pete was the first person to do that.
Imagine a time on YouTube where you would search in the search bar, my PlayStation 2 collection, my Xbox 360 collection, and nothing would show up. So I'm like, I would kind of like to sort of embrace that idea of doing an overview of my collection, and it sort of snowballed from there. And then, of course, the infamous room tour, which really snowballed things.
Yeah.
But it was really the collection videos, and just because people appreciated my sense of the kind of games that I liked. I liked sort of
and you're very down to earth.
I was very down to earth. I mean, just like a laid back personality, and kind of people just gravitated towards it.
Yeah.
Because there was really, there were people out there doing stuff like that, but I don't know. I guess mine just.
What's interesting? You put all that stuff up, and they went really big, and I was like, wow, look at that! That went really big, and it was really cool to see that. And it was so funny. I thought at the time, I'm like, it was so obvious to do that. At the time, I had a PS2 collection as well, as many of us did, But I never thought about putting it in front of the camera. I thought, who'd be interested in that? Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
And little did we know that we'd all be interested in it.
And I always say today, if I were to start a YouTube channel and do exactly what I did today, I'd probably struggle to get any views. It's just that you had to be in the right place at the right time, and I was fortunate enough to have a community that sort of really appreciated what I was doing and really fell in love with it, and I influenced a lot of people to get into it. Like back in the day, in 2009, like if you saw a new channel pop up, chances are they'd name people like you, Gamester, myself as influences of them getting into YouTube and doing similar things, or just getting into collecting in general. So it does mean a lot to...
It's funny to think about the olden days of YouTube, is that I think a lot of the reasons why we did a video is because we were searching for them. We wanted other people to do those videos so we could watch them, see other people's PlayStation 2 collections, and see people who would review the Neo Geo or Fantasy Star or Ease. That's my, for myself. But nobody had reviewed any of them. I'm like, oh, and I was so nervous. I genuinely was that maybe people will forget about these games. We were at a time when things were shifting and changing, and all the games that I loved were big. Like, they weren't only retro, but retro wasn't cool then. It wasn't cool to like retro.
No, it really wasn't. Back on YouTube when it first started, a lot of people were talking about modern games. There wasn't much retro content.
There wasn't any, I remember doing a video on video game memories, and I thought, oh, people are going to laugh at me that I have emotional moments with video games. They're going to think I'm an idiot. And I put it out, and it was really nerve-wracking to do. And I was like one of the first people to talk about like memories, like emotional memories of games choking up, and then everybody started to do it after that type of thing. But it was nervous at first. Like I remember building my collection behind me, and I was like, I was thinking of Adam Sandler. They're all going to laugh at you. I was thinking they're going to think I'm crazy for doing this. Because at that time nobody had video games behind them.
And we were doing a panel yesterday, actually, and we brought up this subject where back in the day on YouTube, you didn't gauge the person based on themselves and what they were talking about at first. The first thing that you were drawn to was the games that were behind them.
Yeah.
Like, that's the first thing that you noticed, and you were like, is this guy a good collector? What does he collect?
Yeah,
you always look what's behind them.
yeah. Like,
Johnny always uses the same background. I try and switch it up, but, hey.
Your videos have changed over the years. Like, you used to do one spot, then another spot.
Yeah, I like to change the backgrounds.
Yeah. And so here, for us getting older and things like that, now is that when I met you back, was it 2008? How old were you then?
Well, I would have been in 2000. I'm 28 now.
Yeah.
So I would have been 20.
20 years old. That is so crazy that you're so young. But you were at 20 years old, you were really with it. You had an incredible collection at 20.
I mean, I started getting into digital press when I was I discovered that website when I was about 11 or 12 or so. And digital press, because back then there were no collection videos. You had to look at galleries online that people took with really crappy cameras of their collections, and I'm like, wow, there are other people out there that are holding on to all their games like me, and I'm like, I want to have a collection like Joe Santulli one day or something. And I just kept on hanging on to everything, and I'd go to garage sales. I started doing eBay when I was 13, so I was doing the whole buy and resell thing to get profits from that. You have to work your way up there.
I just brought up an interesting question I want to ask you. What was it, and it's kind of a question for everybody, what was it that really got you into games that said, I love this stuff and I want to collect it, and it means something so much to me? When did that moment happen, and when did you say, I really want to do this, really want to collect and all that kind of stuff?
I think the whole collecting thing, I had always hung on to games my whole life. I was playing my first console was a ColecoVision. It was my dad's. And then from there, I had family that had the NES, and my grandfather had the Genesis, but it really was that moment when I was going over to my grandfather's house and playing Sonic 1 and 2, Golden Axe 1 and 2, stuff like that for the first time.
So did he just have all the games in the system, and you went over and you just visited and played?
My grandfather was awesome. He played games too. Yeah. So he would play Doom and Tomb Raider and Wolfenstein and Medal of Honor and stuff like that. He was really good at it, but he, being the grandfather that he was, he wanted to have something really cool that he could do with me when I came over. So
awesome.
He played the games too. We played all the Sega Genesis games, and one of my favorite videos I ever uploaded to YouTube was video of me. My dad was recording me while I was there playing Sonic 2 at his house on the TV.
What's the name of that video so people can check it out?
I think it's me playing Sonic 2 back when I was 5 or in 1992 or something like that.
That's great.
It's one of my favorite videos.
That's so fantastic you have that moment captured.
And that's when I got into really loving games.
Yeah.
Because, it wasn't just going there to play games and keep myself busy. It was going there to play with my grandfather and kind of
it's the human interaction.
The human interaction, games, yeah. And then, I started holding on to all the games because I would go out and always, if it was a birthday or just a gift every once in a while, every month or so, I'd go out with my dad to Funko Land or, other shops like the Wiz electronic shops, and we'd go and get that's where I got my 32X. That's where I got my Jaguar. That's,
That was your kind of time and game.
Yeah, going into these stores and just, I remember my eyes glossing over seeing an entire aisle full with Atari Jaguar stuff. It's you just don't see that anymore. And it was just so much fun back then to get a game, and even if it was bad, you played it so much that you kind of fell in love with it anyway.
Yeah.
And then once I found out about websites like Digital Press where other people were collecting games, I aspired to grow my collection like that and just discover all these obscure consoles.
And you started to do a lot of research and find out about the whole spectrum, because there's probably a lot of younger people watching, and video games is a huge world. There's a lot to it all. Mm-hmm. But it's not that complicated if you kind of study all the way up. And for me, I grew up with it, so that's how I even knew. And there must have been a little bit where you're like, I need to catch up on this because I don't know too much about
I was
that.
using resource websites that would list every console ever released, and I'd click on each one, and I would just read through, hey, is this worth buying if you're into just collecting or if you're a gamer? And, I was reading books that, it's so funny, I was reading this book called The Ultimate History of Video Games. I read that a few times over back when I was really young, and that's a book that they use in college classrooms now.
Go figure, ain't
so,
that funny?
Hey, I was keeping myself educated just...
You read it twice?
And I would watch...
That's funny.
I would watch a lot of videos online of games, just even if I had no intention of ever buying or playing them, just to kind of familiarize myself with everything that was out there.
Yeah. And so, we kind of went into the YouTube universe, and we just started just doing videos and having fun and all that kinds of stuff. And now you're kind of a little bit more into the streaming.
Yeah, so, I haven't abandoned YouTube, but it is well known that I take breaks from YouTube, and sometimes for extended periods of time. And once again, this is one it's been going on for like 3 months or so now, but I have a good reason for it, is because I've always been streaming on Twitch. I started on Twitch back before it was even known as Twitch, as Justin TV. I was one.
You remember you telling me to go on Justin TV back in the day.
I was one of the first people to ever stream video game stuff on Justin, and that's transitioned to Twitch now. So I've been streaming for many years, and on and off, but I've never committed to like a consistent schedule. So now I stream multiple times a week.
Yeah.
And why I love it so much is it's kind of rekindled that feeling for me that I had on YouTube back in 2008, 2009, where it was sort of this small community where you had the constant interaction between other, channels and other viewers.
People who love video games.
So now with Twitch, my viewer base is, I get a steady 100, 150 or so people that would show up and watch a stream live, depending on what I'm playing. Yeah. But you get the same people that come back every day, and you get
to know them.
Instant communication with them, and it's like I'm getting to know these people. Like, for example, Nostalgic Dan, he's here at the convention. He's been a moderator in my Twitch channel for many years, and it was kind of cool just to catch up with him. And I haven't had this feeling about gaming content since the beginning.
To be absolutely honest, I love jumping into your streams. It's so much fun. I go in there and I do a little bit of trolling at first.
Oh, I know you do.
But we'll get into sending you to the wrong dungeon in Fantasy Star. That's a whole other thing. That's just too funny. But it's interesting. What about YouTube became like, I'm enjoying it, but it's not like streaming. Like, why did that take over?
Well, there was certain like personal stuff going on in my life with like college and everything, and it got to the point where I'd get home and I'm just like, I'm so worn out.
Yeah.
It's like people don't realize until you do videos, like it might seem simple, but when you get down to like having to break, set up all the equipment and then sit down and have to edit
the thing is like, you have to have energy.
Yeah, I lack the energy.
Put it this way, me and Pete were walking up and I was saying to Pete, I said, I'm absolutely exhausted. We're at this convention, I've had 5 hours sleep, I feel very tired. I'm drinking this Coca-Cola, trying to wake up, and then we sit down and we just kind of like just bring our best energy forward to try to do something like this. But I can honestly say something, is the sun going down?
It's still okay.
Yeah. But I can honestly say that one thing is I miss you making videos on YouTube. And I think a lot of people do, and I'm not putting you on the spot, like I miss your pre-E3 videos. I mean, there's a lot of people I watch on YouTube, but I really love watching your videos because I know you're such a fan of games that your opinion matters to me. And when you're talking about games, there's a lot of times I'm like, oh wow, I hear about a game, I'm like, okay, that's more on the radar. And I never heard of that. And I'm like, well, that's kind of a similar type of game to this. So you just mentioned. I'm like, we're all learning all the time. None of us are just like, I know everything about video games. Who wants to be that person? I don't. I enjoy the discussion about games and the fun of it all. And Pete's videos really were the one that I really tapped into to watch and say, what's Pete excited about for E3 or your after E3 videos? Wow, oh my God, and just your excitement of everything. And I'm not anybody putting any pressure, but one day, whenever, I'd love to see some more stuff like that again.
Yeah, I kind of needed like a convention like this to kind of like rekindle that fire for me, because I was starting to lose the energy. Like, it was just so much easier to just go on Twitch and just play the games and not have to worry about the editing. But I do miss YouTube. Like, I want to come back.
Your opinion matters. It's very important to a lot of people.
Yeah.
It really does. I feel I miss it. I miss you just talking about a random game that you picked up. I mean, I think sometimes we all put a lot of pressure on ourselves to do a video and it needs to be this, it has to be this. And I think just sometimes coming talking about an obscure game that really means something, that's cool. I want to hear about this game. Like,
I think that was the number one problem too. Is as YouTube gets bigger, more and more channels are coming on board, and they put a lot of production and work into their stuff. And I think boy, I'd love to do something like that. Which I used to do a lot of kind of editing, and you put 40 hours into editing one review, but I just don't have the time for that anymore.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I'm like, man, I just don't want to get in front of a camera and just talk about a game and not show anything of it. But
that's okay, dude.
Yeah,
like that's okay. Like do you understand? Your opinion matters. Like I would just like to hear what you have to say about some new game you tried out for like half an hour. You're like, I play this game. It's not bad. It kind of reminds me. I'm like, that's interesting. For me personally, I'll give you an example. There's some videos I do where I sit down and I just talk in the camera, and everybody's like, "Yeah, we know," But there's other videos where I spend a lot of time, like the Fantasy Star Online review, and I put all the footage and I bring all the. Can you believe all my VMUs from 2000, 2001? I had 7 of them. All my characters were still on there.
Jeez.
Still on there. It's amazing. But Sometimes you know something you care about, you can do a big review on. You spend some time, but other times people sometimes just interested in your opinion. It's true, you know.
Yeah, it always helps me when I come to a convention though, and I like meet people face to face that have been watching. Like today, I just met someone that said they were watching me since they were 13, and he's like 18 now, and you know how I've influenced him to get back into collecting. I'm just like, it's great to hear stuff like that, not just through comments, but you know, meeting people in person.
The actual real interactions with people. I find coming to these conventions really pumps me up too, because for a lot of the time, all of us we're just in our dark little rooms playing our games and having our moments. That it's cool to say, oh, somebody appreciates some of the stuff we do. That's awesome. People just think, oh yeah, we're automatically always like super happy with our channels. We're not. We're always working on them to get them better, and it's nice. It's motivating for sure. I think
for me too, like after we've been doing this for so long, 8 years is a very long time to do something consistently all the time. Sometimes you need breaks. Some people need breaks longer than others, and that's just one of my things. I will probably never completely retire from YouTube as long as I love games. It's just that sometimes you need those breaks, and hopefully this break's coming to an end pretty soon.
Yeah, I found it fascinating being, I'm 42, and you're 28. And it's interesting that for me, I never needed a break. That's why I thought your break was so interesting to me, because I've never wanted a break from YouTube, like not from YouTube, but from gaming in general. I've always liked games. I've never get to the point I'm like, I'm burnt out. But I can kind of understand there's so much now. Is that like a lot of what it is?
Yeah, because I used to keep up with gaming news like all the time. Like if there was a new game coming out,
Boom.
I knew what the hell
Trust
it was.
me, I know you did. I know.
I knew everything about it, and it just got to the point where I was so busy that I couldn't even keep up with gaming news anymore.
Wow.
So like all these RPGs and Japanese RPGs, like the stuff that I would normally know about, I just wasn't keeping up with it, and I kind of lost that drive. I'm like, I'm so far behind now. Like, how do I even catch up?
That's so wild.
And it just kind of hit me because I was going to school. Obviously, I wanted to concentrate on school and get done with that, which I was,
Fuck school, video games.
No, yeah. And it's paid off. I mean, and I'm back into games now. Just sort of, I'm more selective in what I play. Cause, back then I was just buying these games because I'm like, oh, that looks pretty cool. Oh, that's
You really were excessive a little bit back then.
Yeah, and now I'm very picky because I was buying these games and I was playing them for a few hours. And I'm like, this is just not for me. And then I, either hold on to them and hope they go up in value or resell them back. But now I do my research, but I also try and stay away from doing too much research because I don't like to spoil.
This is something else that got brought up in the panel we did yesterday, and you brought up a good point. Actually, another guy, Taylor, was saying, he's like, Pete brought up a really good point on that panel. I said, what was that? He goes, not to read up on games that you're interested in, to stay away from all the information.
Yeah. I mean, for example, Last Guardian, as some of you may know, my favorite game of all time is Eco, so you can imagine I've been waiting like 7 years since they announced it, and I'm trying to avoid like anything about that game. Like if they said, hey, we got a new trailer that's out with gameplay, I avoided any gameplay, any impressions that were from E3 because they had a playable demo. Like, I think going into a game completely blind these days is one of the best things you could do because I feel like we've lost that feeling of being surprised with the games.
You brought up a really funny point. You're like, even the game developers take away your fun because they'll have an unboxing of the game 2 weeks before it even gets released.
You don't even get to unbox and enjoy your own games anymore.
That is the weirdest point. I've never kind of thought about it, that a lot of the fun is being taken from us, and we're taking away the fun ourselves.
Like, people go on YouTube and you'll watch, like, someone play through the first 30 minutes or hour of the game, which I understand some people need that sort of, to know if you're if you want to purchase the game, but at the same time, you're ruining your enjoyment.
Do you know, like, I remember back in the day with Final Fantasy III, which is Final Fantasy VI in Japan, when that got released, I'd only seen screenshots. And I was like, oh, this looks gorgeous. And I'd read what reviewers were saying about the music. So I was like, oh, imagining. So when I played the game and heard the music for the first time and saw a lot of the visuals and the animation, shit, look at that. There's actual shit. Like, it might be the air conditioning in here too. No, I'm kidding. But it blew me away. It was like, it was my moment. And it sounds funny. Have you ever had this? This is an interesting question. When I opened up Final Fantasy III and I played it, and my friend Andrew had gotten it a few days before me, and I played it, I felt like I was the only person in the world playing Final Fantasy III.
Really?
I felt like it was mine. I felt like it was like this special thing just for me. And as I've gotten older, it's been hard to sometimes get that feeling back, where I know that now I'm not just the only one playing it. A million people are playing that game, and it's like, oh, it's not really it's mine, but it's kind of.
I do have a similar feeling to that, but for me, it's more with like going back and revisiting older games today that I never played before. So modern games, I don't really get that feeling. But for me, that's why I love systems like the more obscure, like consoles that people hate on and don't really play, like 3DO Jaguar 32X, like just the weird stuff, like N-Gage, Gizmo, like
N-Gage, that's a weird one.
The new one, like all these weird consoles. Like the reason why I love playing those is because it feels like I'm revisiting a part of gaming history that no one really does anymore. Yeah. So sometimes I'm playing these games and I'm like, it could be some weird 3DO game, and I'm like, you know, it's not the greatest game in the world, but just this feeling of playing a game now that hardly anybody has probably ever played to completion or, you know, that long into.
Can you believe where YouTube has gone now? Like, it's interesting you're talking about, you know, like a lot of this stuff isn't on YouTube and people haven't talked about it. Where look at where it's gone to now. Like, type in Neo Geo review now. I remember doing it back in 2008. There was nothing. Yeah. I did the first Neo Geo review. Now there's like thousands. Like, I should put it this way. Back in, I think, 2008, I did a search on D&D, Dungeons and Dragons. And there's, like, honestly, about 20 to 30 videos. So I can cycle through them all. There's some real gem stuff in there. But now, thousands.
Oh, yeah. It's similar.
And I know a lot of people are very nostalgic about the early days of our time on YouTube, the retro community, and how it's kind of changed over time. The reality is, YouTube just became so much bigger. There's like companies, like actual legit companies on YouTube creating content. Like for television, this will be this is television now. I really think so. I think TV will die out in time.
I think so too, because I don't really watch TV anymore. Like I used to watch a lot of YouTube to fill that time, and now I watch a lot of Twitch to fill that sort of void of not watching television anymore. And, you know, there are shows on YouTube that are TV quality. Like that's where people go
beyond.
But it's also made it much harder for people to get discovered. So even if you have an amazing idea, we used to tell people when they said, "Oh, I want to start a channel. What advice do you have?" It's like, "Oh, just go for something, be yourself, and like get a good webcam, whatever." These days, even if you go above and beyond, like unless you know somebody that can kind of like help promote you or something, it's like even if you make the best content, if you don't have a video that goes viral by luck, I mean, it's unfortunate. Your stuff is just
like even if you have enthusiasm, a great camera, lighting, stuff that we never had when we started.
Back on YouTube, if you had that stuff when we started, it would have meant the world. Like people would subscribe to you just for high production values.
I think if I did the channel that I'm doing, the regular channel on a weekly basis that I do now, if I did that back in 2008, I'd be probably 500,000 subscribers by now. But I had my bandana on. I just quit smoking, and I was like very insecure. It was a different time. It was like. I didn't, we didn't want to be in the camera in a way, but we wanted to be at the same time. We wanted to promote this video game stuff, and we wanted to talk about it. But it was it was hard transition. It took a while for us. I know for you and for me.
I mean, it was a little awkward being on camera at first, but I think also it was because of limitation of like programs and stuff back then, like editing back then. There weren't really that many, unless you had a lot of money to buy some crazy editing programs. Like you kind of had to just get in front of that camera and just kind of fill the void with webcam kind of or video stuff.
Yeah, because I had a pretty good camera back then, and I had Final Cut, but even then, like YouTube couldn't even do high definition in the beginning. My videos were high definition, and I had to tell people you had to click this link to make it high def.
Remember when they used to have the 10-minute limit?
Yep. That's another great
All
point.
of my beginning videos were like 9:59, and I had to time it perfectly.
Yeah, you're looking at the time like, oh shit, I gotta close this off pretty soon. It is really funny. And then that was a big. People wanted to get partnership because they wanted to make longer videos.
Yeah, I was one of the earliest people that was doing gaming content that got offered a partnership. Like,
who offered you that?
YouTube themselves.
Oh yeah.
It was back when
that's what it was back then.
It was back when it was invite only. Like you couldn't even really. I don't think you could apply for it. Like YouTube had to reach out to you and say, "Hey, we'd like to partner you." And I think at the time, the only gaming channel that was partnered was. I know he was partnered, but then there was someone else, like maybe Dark Side Phil, maybe.
Was he around back then?
I don't know. It was someone else, but I was like, I was really shocked. But partnership back then was
it was Irate Gamer, wasn't it?
Maybe it was like two others, but they were like much.
And I don't think the AVGN.
They were big channels.
Yeah, AVGN didn't have partnership back then. I was like.
I don't know. Well, anyway, the point of that is back then, you wanted partnership because you wanted the longer videos, and it was something new. Like partnership was just coming around.
Brand new. It was like, what is this?
Back then, it was seen as selling out big time. Like I remember the videos where people would rant and rave. It's like so and so just got a partnership. I'm not watching them anymore, and it's like, look at it now these days, right? I mean, look at what it's become.
Yeah, it's funny. Things change over time. I think the only thing that you can do is do content that you believe in and you like. You're doing Twitch and you're enjoying that. Like, that's all you can do. And I do videos that I believe in and I enjoy. That's what it comes down to. We've been doing it for 8 years. You know, I don't think we've fundamentally changed personality-wise in 8 years. You know, I think I became more comfortable in front of the camera.
Yeah, I've become more comfortable in front of the camera and people-to-people interaction as well. Like, it really helped me kind of...
Well, you were young back then. Like, when you're like 20 years old, I don't think I was a great social wizard, you know, to a certain extent and all that. But, man, we got to talk a lot about YouTube, a lot about some good stuff.
You forgot, you mentioned Phantasy Star. We got to go back to that.
Fuck. Okay. This is... So... Pete is playing Phantasy Star 1. He has plans to play Phantasy Star 1, Phantasy Star 2, 3, and 4, right?
I've never played any of them before, so blind playthroughs.
Yeah, so he's on Twitch. He's playing the first game, and he's at the second dungeon. And he's like, so Johnny, like...
No, this was the first dungeon I think I was going into.
Didn't you already get Odin?
No.
Oh, okay, so it was the first. Oh, you have Meow.
I had just Meow. And
that's right. So... He's like, so Johnny, where do I go? Blah, blah, blah. Because he had to get the cake for the governor, wasn't it? Like, and I swear to God, I thought it was the cake to the right. I swear to God. I would have said, I felt so bad about it.
So he sent me to the wrong dungeon. Keep in mind, I'm also mapping the dungeon myself.
Mapping it in Twitch.
Like, I could just go online and watch look at a map online, but I wanted to do a complete, like, legit blind playthrough. So it's so funny. I saved the screenshot of it, but... The dungeon that Johnny sent me to, I tried to map it out. It's just a jumble of, like... It looks like if you had a puzzle piece and you just, like, dismantled it. That's kind of what the map looked like. I was stuck in there for 3 hours, trying to get out. I didn't save my game beforehand.
I was like, man, Pete's really not good at RPGs. And then this guy came in, and I used to be on his Facebook group for Phantasy Star, and he's a real Phantasy Star, like memorized, you know, the games, where everything is. And he's like, he's in the wrong dungeon, and I'm like... I felt this like bit of sweat go like just down. I'm like,
I thought it was you honestly just testing me to see if I can handle Phantasy Star.
God, what kind of like sadomasochist would I be to put somebody through that?
See if Pete can handle
the wrong dungeon in Phantasy Star. And I was talking to like Rob later on. I was like, man, I said, maybe we're getting older here. I said, but I could have sworn, I would have bet my mother on it that was the dungeon to go to. Well, and you just had to go north.
It's a memory that I'll always have.
It's a memory that we always have. Star. And it was just so awkward near that because he was so burnt out at the end of the stream. He was like, oh, fuck. Yeah, no more tonight. I'm done tonight. And I'm sitting there like, on my computer. Like, no matter what.
I was very relieved when I made it out of the dungeon.
Oh, he made it out, which was crazy. Yeah. You know, type of thing. So, yeah, we got to answer... you know, like a lot of the fun stuff of where Pete Dorr has been and what happened in that terrible dungeon and all that great stuff. So yeah, thanks for coming out.
Not a problem. It was
absolutely
fun.
Yeah, for sure.
Good to talk with you because we haven't talked in like this since we did something many years ago with Algin Gamers.
Yes.
Where we sat in a hotel room.
Oh god, that's
the last time. Yeah, because we haven't really had a chance to really sit down and talk at these conventions.
Yeah, and it's great whenever we can actually sit down and talk one-on-one and talk about games and fun stuff because we never get a chance to do that, you know, in the same place. It's always me trolling you.
In a quiet place. Like,
yeah, it's always me trolling you on your Twitch streams and all that kinds of stuff. So, anyways, guys, until next time.